that was an amazing amount of data and useful information. And I know from having sat next to Tracy at dinner last night, that's the very tip of the iceberg, that there's all kinds of additional layers below that is ready to be parsed and analyzed. And it can be a little overwhelming. I don't know if anyone else felt a little overwhelmed, but the first time I looked at even the summary report, I felt a little overwhelmed and had the question come up that Tracy started to answer on one of her last slides. So what do we do? What do we make of that? I come a little bit more from the realm of commercial publishing than from scholarly and professional publishing. So I thought it would be interesting for you folks to hear some quick thoughts that occurred to me as I read through those findings that are a little bit more in the, I don't know what you want to call it, marketing mode of content, and perhaps often comes up in scholarly publishing. But you might surprise me. Maybe you folks will find this all very common and very tame. I also said to Tracy last night, I'm sort of the color man for her talk. So I'm not presenting a whole lot of sophisticated data. I'm sort of kibitzing. So some quick thoughts about what you publishers of journals and professional societies might be able to do quickly, having heard all that, or at least decide to do quickly. You may not do it quickly. And so these are just a handful of thoughts. First half are more strategic, big thinking. It would be helpful to come to the problem with this sort of context. That's what I'm going to recommend. And then the last half are very tactical. And I just chose almost arbitrary examples, and certainly not covering the full realm of possibility, but just to give you a sense of how I react to these things, and hopefully it might be helpful for you. And if all of this seems off point, at least I have some funny pictures at the top of my slides as we go along, so hopefully you'll be somewhat entertained by that. So the takeaway message that I got from Tracy's top line reports about what is it that really matters, if I can think about all 15 possible or 20 or 100 original channels of discovery, what are the top 3 or 4? And it seemed to me as I kept looking over the charts, they boil down to these. If you're just trying to figure out what can I do soon now, what can I think about, it seemed to me there are 2 critical inbound routes. One are the aggregators, or I'm sorry, the abstracting and index services, such as PubMed. Then there are the search engines, and really whenever we say there are the search engines, we really just mean then there's Google. And then there's your own website, because as we just heard, even though some website features may be a little less popular this time around than in previous surveys, people still go there, and there are particular services and features that they look for. So let's think about this focus as we move ahead. The ANIs, the search engines, and your own website. Second big concept. Tim and I had a little conversation about this the other day on the phone. A few years ago, this phrase started to buzz around, content discovery optimization. Anybody heard that phrase, content discovery optimization? Oh, I'm glad most of you were immune from that. But it was sort of the new version of search engine optimization, and I'm sure that all of you would raise your hands if I asked how many people had heard of search engine optimization. So, content discovery optimization is just a really silly, complicated way of saying doing what you need to do to make what you're producing attractive, engaging, and useful for your target audience. And it turns out that's not just good for target audience members who are human beings, but now Even the Google bot thinks that way. And in fact, it was the Google bot's change of thinking that really drove this. In the old days, there were meta tags called keywords, and everybody was stuffing their meta keywords with things like pictures of naked people and free trips to Europe, and that's how they would get people to come to their website. Well, Google figured that out, and over the years, the algorithm has changed so that basically the algorithm is trying to look at your website as a human being would. So whatever is important to your target audience, hallelujah, is now what's important for content discovery in terms of the algorithm. So we get to think about, and it's okay to plan strategy that's what I would call natural optimization of content. So it's as good as SEO, but it's honest and it's more fun, and you can call it organic if you want, and as I say, it's good for people as well as for Google. On the print side of things, we have come to call this editorial marketing, which is just to say, you make what you're doing conspicuous, and you make the benefit of what you're doing conspicuous. And there's nothing wrong with that, there's nothing underhanded about that, that's a service to your readers. That's how they find you and see what's good about you. So let's keep that in mind as an overarching concept. Optimizing your content discovery organically. And then I recommend you do the content discovery two-step, by which I mean, and I guess I just alluded to this, I think for optimizing contents, there are two basic steps. One is the invitation, the first hit, the first time they see you, the wink across the room, the twinkle in your eye, whatever you can do on that one page that you get in PubMed that clearly says "come hither," the flirt, if you will, and then engage, which means, okay, hopefully you flirted with them a little bit, they liked what they saw, they clicked, they ended up where you wanted them to end up, at least for the first page. Now, show them what you got. Now, be useful as you possibly can. Now, cross-reference and do all the things that you know people need to have done for them in order for them to stick around and, as I put it in this labored analogy, to dance after you flirted with them. So think about that overarching concept as you think about how to deal with all these findings. Oh, I loved it this morning. Jennifer, I wish I had thought of this phrase. Jennifer McClellan quoted a colleague of hers in her talk this morning as saying, make the content promiscuous. That's probably more than I would have been brave enough to say. And I would have had to come up with a completely different picture at the top of this slide. But I like that idea too. Okay, so now we're going to move into just 3 tactical steps. What are some examples of things I could actually do? No more big ideas, but these all dovetail with the big ideas. So, as I say here, make the abstract concrete. So this is, in fact, an example of an abstract that I found on a journal website last week. And, we all know these kinds of pages. It's very hard to see any twinkle in this page's eye. It's very hard to get any sort of come hither message from this page. All the information is here, but it's just not flirting with us very well. This is not a new concept. This is something we've been thinking about in terms of web content for years. Every time you guys do a redesign of your website, you think about what's the best way to make the information conspicuous and pop out. It's not rocket science, but the funny thing is, we work with a lot of clients who've been in this business for a long time. It's always good to go back to basics. It's always good to listen to a presentation like Tracy's, and then go look at your website again and remind yourself of the fundamentals and ask yourself, is this page flirting with me enough, or do we need to look at how to do that again? So make the abstract concrete. Again, this is nothing you haven't heard before, I hope, but it's always good to be reminded of fundamentals. So you want to format stuff for quick reading and quick scanning. You want to make it clear from boldface labels and other kinds of what might be called display copy, that you're solving a problem. In fact, you're solving the problem that connects to the search terms or the citation that the user submitted in order to get to this page. And this content has to be rich in the keywords that are important to your user. Again, not the funny old metadata keywords, but hot buttons, subject areas that are important. It's hard for you guys to read this, I'm sure, but boldface, this abstract has objective, design, participants, main outcome measures, search strategy, results, and conclusions. Very standard boilerplate kind of headings for abstract. But this is a lot more concrete, and it says come hither a lot more powerfully than that does. So, just reminding you of that particular tactic. Okay, strategy, or tactic number 2, number 5 on my list. This is going to get a little geeky, and I hope that's okay. The first one was so easy and just kind of editorial, so this is a little techie. As Tracy mentioned a couple of times, Google Regular is important. Sure, your audience uses Google Scholar a lot, but Google Regular is still very important. And I had a funny discovery a couple of weeks ago when I started looking at all of your sites. And that was that, and I love it if there's a search engine optimization person or two in the audience who knows that I'm about to say something wrong, please raise your hand or let me know after I say it. But it looks to me like many of your sites are neglecting just a little bit of extra oomph you could get from searches within Google Regular. So you're all very careful, because you're journals, to put in the meta tags that are part of the lingo, the document type definitions are the right term. You know, the tags that come from, I've forgotten all the different schemes and paradigms, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Your publishing platforms, your repository software, they all kind of force you to do that. So your code is marked up very well with those kinds of meta tags. But some people look for you in Google Regular, not in Google Scholar. Google Scholar cares about those tags that I was just describing. Google Regular is influenced by a couple of other tags. The algorithm certainly cares about the tag that's called the title tag in HTML. But the other important part of the equation, the human being, the searcher, the actual person, it's very clear from lots of research that person cares about what you could be putting in what's called the description meta tag. And I'll show you an example of what I'm talking about. But we all know, you do a search on Google and you get a bunch of search results, and each one is a link. And then there's a few lines of text that some people call the search snippet. It's something that's supposed to give you a preview or a summary of what it is at the other end of that link in order to get you to come thither. That snippet on Google Regular is what you put inside the description meta tag. And as I say, when I looked at a bunch of sites last week, a surprising number to me didn't even have meta description tags. So it seemed to me a lost opportunity for all those people who are in your target audience who do use Google Regular. You're not beckoning them quite as strongly as you might. So here's an example of an article that I guess is on the Journal of Endovascular Treatment, is it? On their website. And believe me, this was one of many examples. I don't mean to be signaling them out, but I can't show 1,000 examples. Anyway, on top we have Google Scholar. And I don't know if you can read this, but on the very top is the main link, which is the title of the article, or as much of the title as Google could swallow. And then below that is what you might call the search snippet. But because within Google Scholar, the publisher is following all those clearly defined tags for article abstracts and so forth, we see the beginning of the article abstract. And that's a very useful come hither signal for the audience of Google Scholar. What better thing to show than a church summary, or the beginning of a church summary. Down below that, however, is the example of the search result that shows that same page when you search it in Google regular. And there, again, you get the title, but the snippet is not very interesting. It's a little bit of an author. Mostly it's sort of taking a piece of the page that, because there was no description tag, the Google bot just grabbed something. So it's mostly a repetition of the title. No need for that. And then the first two authors and a half. So that's not a very, that snippet, that thing that you get to put in the meta description, that's your billboard, that's your commercial space, that's your elevator pitch to say, come see this article. It's exactly what you were looking for. It matches up to your search criteria. And again, it's not the bot that cares, it's the human being that's reading this. You're trying to convince them to click. That's the point of the meta description. And for some reason, some journals are not using that. And I read all the Google Scholar rules and regulations. I don't think there's a conflict. I don't think you can't do both. Does anybody know that you're not supposed to do both? I think you can do both. So why not do both? In fact, so here's an example on Google Regular of, on top, BMJ. There's the title and the link, and then there's the abstract showing up below as the snippet. That's good. That's like what they do on Google Scholar, but here it's showing up on Google Regular instead of some kind of incoherent, automatically grabbed snippet by the bot. So they put that in the meta description. I just want to make a brief commercial. Don't forget the title tag, though, either, because again, on a bunch of journal pages, I saw people not dealing with the regular Google title tag. That's the thing that's up in the top of the browser window or on the tab in the browser that nobody ever looks at. But it is what shows up at the top of a search result, as it does here. And if you see in the example below under Oops, I found an example of the Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery. And by the way, Kent Anderson, who runs that place, is extremely sophisticated and hip. I'm sure the whole site is not like this. I just happened to stumble upon it. So again, I'm not singling out anyone. But Oops, it's a generic title. It looks like somebody left a placeholder in there, Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery / article, instead of the title. And you may say, oh, come on. But we all know as searchers how impatient we are, how busy we are. You know how your target audience is pretty hard, it's pretty hard to get their attention. So don't blow an opportunity like that that's perfectly available to you within the tags for regular Google. Okay, that was really tactical and geeky. If you need any examples of how the experts do it, here's an example of a title and a description copy from both Search Engine Land, which is a big SEO blog, and Martha Stewart, who presumably knows how to promote. Just to show that a nice clear title and especially a description that connects with user hot buttons and keywords. The top one is article specific, it's about that article. Bottom one is from the homepage, so it's about the whole site, just in case you need a little inspiration. Okay, last tactical tip. Since, as we heard from Tracy, and we've always suspected, people are coming to our sites and our pages from many different places, often from the abstract and indexing pages, services, and we're starting with just an abstract page, and then boom, they're right into the site, deep into the site on an article page or an abstract page. Because of that, we need to grab them and keep them entertained on every single page. And again, you guys know this, it's been very interesting to see over the years how journals, websites have gotten hipper and hipper about that, about related material and citations and making all the tools and utility much more conspicuous. But I have to say, having looked at a bunch of sites over the last 2 weeks, we could goose that effort. We could do it even better. So again, having heard what Tracy's report says, it's good to go back and look at your site and think about, for every page of your site, or every type of page, every template, am I doing the best I can to keep the user engaged? The reason I phrased it this way, make every page a home page. I have a friend who's a researcher at UC Berkeley, very highfalutin biochemist on a lot of boards of journals, and he told me this. I told him I was coming to this conference, and he told me the story about how a while ago one of the journals that he advises started realizing that they don't really have a home page anymore, and they can't really put like the cover page on their homepage anymore because nobody looks at the homepage. And I said, well, what was on the cover page? He said, well, like the most important articles in the journal we would always feature. So I said, well, why don't you just put that on every page of the site? And he said, well, that's what we put on the homepage. And I said, well, so make every page the homepage, at least from that point of view. So that's just maybe a handy way to remember it or emphasize it for you. For all of these things, especially the things that Tracy made clear are still important on your site to users. TOC alerts, editor's choice, and related, or what's being cited. Make that really conspicuous, visible already, without clicking if possible. I know those are layout and design challenges, but as we're hearing and seeing from Tracy's study, these are important things to keep thinking about. Okay, that's it. So recap, focus on your site, on just Google. I should say that, if you just focus on Google and you just focus on the ANIs, you do take care of a lot of the other people anyway. So that's one way to sort of talk yourself into keeping a short list. Optimize content discovery naturally. Do the two-step. Remember, you got to invite them and engage them. Make everything as concrete and scannable as possible. Don't neglect regular Google. I'd love to hear if anybody thinks that's a wacky idea, or if anybody tries it and has any experiences about that. I'd love to hear about some follow-up, and make every page a home page. Thank you.